The darkness of the ring is cut by a spotlight. The sound of gloves flapping against sandbags echoes. Do you think you know me, Bianca? Amanda's voice is sharp, provocative as she faces her rival with a cruel smile. Quick scenes, sweat dripping, looks that cut like knives, a screaming crowd. You're nothing but a broken country girl. Amanda laughs, but the close-up on Bianca shows eyes that burn with secrets. A flash, Amanda, young, crying in a dark alley, holding a crumpled letter. Bianca's voice cold, be careful, Amanda. Those who mock the past of others can stumble over their own. The music rises, tense, as the two face each other in the ring, fists raised. A scream, a punch, and the screen goes dark. In the ring, the past always takes its toll. Like the video and tell us which state you're watching from. I mocked Bianca's past like a gun, not imagining that my own past was lurking, ready to take me down. The gym reeked of sweat and old rubber, the air heavy with the July heat. The crowd packed the stands, their screams echoing like thunder as I, Amanda, adjusted my gloves, the creaking leather against my calloused fingers. My rival, Bianca, was a few meters away, a slender shadow under the raw light of the ring, her eyes fixed on me like those of a wolf. I knew her story, a girl who fled a forgotten village, bearing scars from a childhood that no one mentioned. And I used it as poison. So, Bianca, do you still dream of that hovel where you came from? My voice cut through the silence before the fight, loud enough for the first rows to hear. Muffled laughter echoed, and I saw her shoulders stiffen. His eyes, brown and deepened, shone with something that was not anger but a warning. You don't know what you're talking about, Amanda, she replied, her voice low, almost a whisper but heavy with weight. I laughed, throwing my head back, my hair dangling. He thought he had it in the palm of his hand. The coach, SCU Jorge, pulled me by the arm. Stop it, girl. Focus on the ring, not on the tongue. He smelled of rancid coffee, and his calloused hand squeezed my shoulder tightly. Ignored. I was Amanda Farah Lima, undefeated for 3 years, the star who made the audience vibrate. Bianca was just another adversary, someone I would crush as I did with so many others. But as I warmed up, punching the air, I felt a chill on the back of my neck as if someone was watching me from the past. The bell rang and the ring became the world. My feet danced on the canvas, the worn leather under my sneakers. Bianca moved with precision, her fists protecting her face, her thin but firm body as steel. Every punch I threw seemed to hit an invisible wall. She swerved with a calmness that irritated me. You don't belong here, country girl. I shouted, trying to destabilize her. But she just smiled, a small, almost sad smile, and said, You'll see, Amanda. The past always comes back. That night, as the crowd roared, I felt something new, a twinge of doubt. My punches were fast, but hers were accurate, as if she knew exactly where I would fail. When the first round was over, I sat in the corner, my heart racing, sweat burning in my eyes. Bianca stared at me from the other side, and for a moment I swear I saw pity in her eyes. What did she know that I didn't? The second round started with a roar from the crowd, but my head was elsewhere. As I danced in the ring, Bianca's voice echoed, The past always comes back. What did she mean by that? The gymnasium, with its fluorescent lights and creaking plastic chairs, seemed smaller, as if the walls closed in on me. My breath came out in slugs, the hot air burning my lungs. I needed to focus, but something in her eyes disarmed me. Are you scared, Amanda? Bianca asked, dodging a jab with the grace of a dancer. His voice was calm, but there was a hint of provocation. I growled, throwing a hook that grazed his shoulder. Fear? From you? A nobody who came from nowhere. I replied, but my voice trembled. She laughed, a low sound that made my blood boil. You're not as invincible as you think. Between blows, flashes of the past hit me like punches. Me, at the age of 15, running through the dark streets of my neighborhood, running away from something I never named. The crumpled letter I hid in the back of the drawer, the words I never read to the end. I shook my head, trying to push away the memories. Focus, Amanda. She's just an adversary. But Bianca's every move seemed calculated, as if she read my soul. Mr. Jorge shouted from the corner, Raise your guard, Amanda. Stop playing. But I wasn't kidding. My arms were heavy, and my confidence, which had always been my armor, was beginning to crack. Bianca landed a punch on my flank, and the pain exploded like fire. I staggered, the tarp beneath my feet looking unstable. The crowd was screaming, but I could only hear the echo of her words. The past always comes back. At halftime, I sat on the bench, sweat running down my face like tears. My coach threw water on my face, the cold liquid making me shiver. What's going on with you, girl? He asked, frowning. I didn't answer. I looked at Bianca, who wiped her sweat with a towel, her face serene. She knew something. And for the first time I felt like the ring wasn't my territory. In the third round the crowd looked like a living monster, their screams pulsing in my chest. I was furious, with myself, with Bianca, with the world. How dare she challenge me like that? I was the champion, the undefeated. But each punch I threw seemed slower, as if the air had turned to honey. Bianca, on the other hand, moved like the wind, her blows quick and precise, each finding a weak spot I didn't even know existed. "Are you tired, Amanda?" she asked, her eyes shining under the ring light. "Or is it the weight of what you hide that is pulling you down?" His words were like a blade. I roared, throwing a string of punches that she deflected with ease. "Shut up," I shouted, but my voice sounded weak, almost pleading. The audience cheered, but I felt their looks like judgments. The memories came back, uncontrollable. Me at 17, yelling at my mother in a cramped kitchen, the smell of burning beans in the air. The letter she gave me with an address I never wanted to know. I needed her, threw it away, but I never forgot the words, "You need to know the truth." In the ring I shook my head, trying to get rid of the weight. Bianca took advantage, landing an uppercut that made my vision explode into stars. I staggered, my knees shaking, the cold tarp under my feet. Mr. Jorge shouted something, but I didn't hear it. All I could see was Bianca, standing a few meters away, her fists still raised, but her face calm, almost pitiless. "You can't run away forever, Amanda," she said, low enough that only I could hear. My heart raced. How did she know? In the corner, as the coach wiped my face, I felt something I had never felt in the ring: fear. Not from her, but from what she seemed to know. My breathing was irregular, and my hands trembled inside my gloves. I looked out over the crowd, their faces blurred by the light, and wondered if anyone there knew my secret. Or worse, if Bianca knew. The fourth round was brutal. My muscles screamed, and every movement seemed to tear something inside me. Bianca was no longer just an adversary, she was a mirror reflecting everything I tried to hide. The gymnasium smelled of dust and adrenaline, and the crowd seemed to feel the tension, their louder, hungrier screams. I needed to take her down. It was my only way out. "Do you think you're better than me?" I shouted, throwing a hook that hit the air. Bianca dodged, her light feet on the canvas, and responded with a punch on my shoulder that made my arm tingle. "It's not about being better, Amanda. It's about being honest." Her voice was firm, almost maternal, and that infuriated me even more. "Honest? You who ran away from a shack to pretend you're someone." I replied, but my words sounded hollow. She hit me again, a jab to the chin that made my head spin. The pain was a reminder. I was losing control. The memories came back in waves, the letter, the address, the name I never wanted to pronounce. "Have you read it, Amanda?" Bianca asked, and I froze. My fists dropped for a moment, and she didn't take the opportunity to attack. Instead, he stared at me, his eyes filled with something that looked like compassion. "What do you know?" I asked, my voice hoarse. The doorbell rang, saving me from an answer. In the corner, SU Jorge shook me by the shoulders. "Wake up, Amanda. She's inside your head." He was right, but I couldn't admit it. As I drank water, the cold liquid going down my throat, I looked at Bianca. She talked to her coach, her face calm as if the ring were her home. And I, for the first time, felt like an invader. I sat down, my heart beating like a drum. My mind was spinning. How did she know about the letter? From the address? The name I had buried? The gym seemed to swirl around me, the lights flashing like distant stars. I needed to end it, but a part of me feared what would come next. In the fifth round, I was no longer fighting only against Bianca. I was fighting against myself. Every punch I threw was an attempt to silence the voices in my head, the memories I had locked away in a dark corner of my soul. The ring was slippery with sweat, and the air felt warmer, heavier. The crowd screamed my name, but I felt alone, exposed. "Why are you running away, Amanda?" Bianca asked, blocking one of my blows. His voice was calm, but it cut like a knife. "Running away from what?" I replied, but my voice trembled. She walked over, her fists raised, and whispered, "You know what? Or rather, from whom?" My heart stopped. For a moment, the gym was gone, and I saw the face of a man I had never met, but whose name was on that letter. I attacked with fury, a sequence of clumsy punches, driven by anger and fear. Bianca dodged, but one of the blows hit her face and I saw blood drip from her lip. She did not back down. Instead, he smiled, the blood staining his teeth. "You can beat me, Amanda, but you can't erase what you know." His words hit me harder than any punch. I staggered, my breath short. The past was no longer a shadow, it was a chain around my neck. I remembered the day my mother told me about my father, the man who abandoned us. The letter she gave me with an address and a request for forgiveness. I never opened it completely, I never wanted to know. But Bianca knew. Oh. At intermission I sat up, my body exhausted, my mind in pieces. Mr. Jorge shouted something about strategy, but I didn't listen. My eyes were fixed on Bianca, who wiped the blood from her face with a towel. She looked back at me, and for a moment I saw something other than a rival. I saw someone who knew my pain. The 6th round was a dance of ghosts. My every move was heavy, loaded with doubts. Bianca, on the other hand, seemed lighter, as if the truth set her free as it held me back. The gym vibrated, the lights reflecting on the sweat that ran down my face. The crowd felt the change. I was no longer the predator, but the prey. Have you ever thought about facing him, Amanda? Bianca asked, dodging a jab. His words were soft, almost gentle, but each one was a blow. Face who? I replied, but my voice sounded weak, as if I already knew the answer. She came closer, her eyes fixed on mine. Your father. The man you pretend doesn't exist. My world stopped. The ring, the crowd, the noise, everything is gone. I saw the letter in my mind's eye, the address scrawled, the name I never uttered. How do you know that? I asked, my voice almost a whisper. She didn't respond, just dodged another punch and landed a blow on my chest that made me retreat. The physical pain was nothing compared to the pain his words caused. I fought desperately, but my blows were sloppy, powerless. Bianca seemed to read every movement as if she knew my soul. You can't run away forever, she repeated, and I wanted to scream, I wanted to punch her until she was silent. But a part of me knew she was right. The past was not hers alone, it was mine too. In the corner, while Seu Jorge threw water on my face, I trembled. Not from cold, but from fear. What's going on, Amanda? Talk to me. He demanded, but I couldn't. How to explain that my rival seemed to know more about me than I did myself? I looked at Bianca, and she stared at me, not with hatred, but with a strange sadness. In the 7th round, the ring felt like a battlefield where I was the only one bleeding. My arms weighed like lead, and every breath was an effort. Bianca, however, seemed tireless, her movements fluid, her eyes filled with a certainty I envied. The gym smelled of metal and tension, and the crowd seemed to sense that something bigger was at stake. Have you ever wondered why he left? Bianca asked, blocking a punch from me. Her voice was calm, but there was a weight in it, as if she carried the same pain as me. Stop talking about him. I shouted, throwing a hook that she deflected easily. You don't know anything. But I knew she knew. And that terrified me. A flash of memory hit me at the age of 10, waiting on the porch for a father who never came. The emptiness he left, the anger that grew in me like a poisonous plant. Bianca landed a punch on my flank, and the pain brought me back to the ring. You don't have to carry this alone, Amanda, she said, and there was something in her voice that made me hesitate. I stopped, fists still raised, chest rising and falling. Why are you doing this? I asked, my voice hoarse. She didn't answer, just stared at me, and for a moment I saw something familiar on her face. Something that could not be true. The doorbell rang and I staggered to my corner, my mind spinning. Mr. Jorge held my face, forcing me to look at him. You're letting her destroy you, Amanda? Fight. But I wasn't fighting Bianca. I was fighting something bigger, something I had buried for years. And as I stared at her, wiping the sweat from across the ring, a question echoed in my head. Who was she really? In the 8th round, the ring felt like a stage where my past and my present collided. The crowd was screaming, but I could barely hear it. My eyes were fixed on Bianca, on her features, on the curve of her chin, on the sparkle of her eyes. There was something familiar, something I didn't want to admit. Sweat ran down my face, mixing with tears I didn't know were there. Have you opened the letter yet, Amanda? Bianca asked, her voice cutting through the noise of the gym. I stopped, fists down, heart racing. How do you know the letter? My voice was a whisper, almost swallowed by the roar of the crowd. She approached, her fists still raised, but her eyes were soft. Because I also received one. The world collapsed. My knees weakened and I almost fell. The letter. The address. The name. It cannot be. You are? I began, but the words died in my throat. Bianca nodded, almost imperceptibly, and said, Your sister, Amanda. Daughter of the same man who abandoned us. The crowd was gone, the ring was gone, and there were just the two of us, connected by a secret I never wanted to face. She hit me, a light punch, almost a touch, as if she wanted to bring me back. I didn't come here to destroy you, she said. I came to remind you. I shook my head, tears now flowing freely. You're lying. I screamed, but my heart knew the truth. Her face, so familiar, was an echo of my own. At halftime I sat on the bench, my body shaking. Mr. Jorge screamed, but I didn't hear. My mind was on the letter, on the name I never wanted to say out loud. Bianca was my sister. And I had mocked her, humiliated her, not knowing that she carried the same weight as me. The gym seemed to spin and I didn't know who I was anymore. The 9th round was a blur. My punches were weak, directionless, as if I were fighting a ghost. Bianca, on the other hand, seemed stronger, as if the truth had set her free. The gym smelled of blood and sweat, and the crowd roared, oblivious to the drama unfolding in the ring. I couldn't look at her without seeing my own reflection. "Why didn't you tell me before?" I asked, my voice broken as I dodged a punch. She responded with another blow, this one stronger, which hit my shoulder. "Because you needed to be ready to listen." His voice was firm, but there was a pain there, a pain that I recognized. "I didn't want that," I shouted, throwing a punch that she blocked. The memories suffocated me. My mother, crying in the kitchen, talking about a man who left us. The letter that I never opened but that I kept as a weight. Bianca knew. She had faced the same abandonment, the same pain. And yet he was there, fighting not only against me but for me. "You don't have to be alone, Amanda," she said, and her words hurt more than any blow. I attacked with fury, but it was a blind, clumsy fury. Bianca dodged, her movements precise, almost gentle. The crowd was screaming, but I could only hear the echo of my own breath, the beating of my heart. At the end of the round, I staggered to my corner, my body exhausted, my mind in pieces. Mr. Jorge held my face, forcing me to look at him. "Are you going to give up, Amanda? Is that what you are?" But I didn't know what it was anymore. I looked at Bianca on the other side of the ring and saw not a rival, but a part of me that I never wanted to know. The 10th round was where everything fell apart. My arms felt like they were made of stone, and every step on the canvas was an effort. The gymnasium, with its harsh lights and its smell of adrenaline, looked like a grave. The crowd was screaming, but I could only hear the echo of Bianca's words, "Your sister." I didn't want to believe it, but every look from her was proof. "Are you ready to face the truth, Amanda?" she asked, dodging a weak punch of mine. His voice was calm, almost pleading. "Stop talking," I shouted, but my voice was a moan. She hit me, an uppercut that sent my head spinning, and I fell, the cold canvas against my back. The crowd exploded, but I could only see her face, hovering above me. "Get up, Amanda," she said, her eyes shining with tears. "You're stronger than that." But I wasn't. The weight of the past, of abandonment, of the letter I never opened, held me to the ground. The judge began the countdown, his voice echoing like thunder. 1, 2, 3. I wanted to get up, but my body wouldn't obey. The memories swallowed me. Me at 15, screaming that I would never need a father. My mother, with her eyes full of pain, handing me the letter. And now Bianca, my sister, the girl I mocked, staring at me with a mixture of pity and hope. 4, 5, 6. The judge continued, and I felt the world collapse. In the corner, after they dragged me to the bench, Mr. Jorge held my face. "Are you going to let her beat you like that?" But it wasn't her. It was me. I was my own enemy. I looked at Bianca, who was wiping the sweat on the other side, and I saw something I never expected. Love. Not hatred, not rivalry. Love. The 11th round began with a silence inside me. The gym was still vibrating, but I was somewhere else. Every punch I threw was a plea, every deviation from Bianca was a response. She didn't fight to destroy me, I fought to save myself. And that was what hurt the most. "You don't have to carry this alone," she said, blocking a jab. His voice was soft but firm, as if he wanted to convince me of something bigger. "You don't know me," I replied, but my words were empty. She knew me. Better than myself. She landed a punch in my chest, and the pain made me retreat, but it wasn't the physical pain that brought me down. I saw the letter in my mind's eye, the address I never visited, the name I never uttered. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice hoarse, almost a cry. She stopped, her fist still raised, and said, "Because I've faced my past. And you deserve it too." His words were a blow stronger than any punch. The crowd was screaming, but I could barely hear it. My eyes were fixed on Bianca, on her features that now seemed so familiar. She was my sister. My family. And I had treated her like an enemy. I threw a final, weak, almost symbolic punch, and she dodged, staring at me with a sadness that broke my heart. At intermission, I sat up, my body exhausted, my mind in tatters. Mr. Jorge threw water on my face, but I didn't feel it. My head was on Bianca, on the letter, on the father who abandoned us. And for the first time, I felt that maybe it was time to face what I had always feared. The 12th round was different. I no longer fought out of anger or pride. You fought for me. By Bianca. For us. The gym seemed smaller, the lights softer, as if the world knew something was changing. My arms were still heavy, but there was a new strength in me, one that came from the depths of my soul. Are you ready, Amanda? Bianca asked, her eyes shining with something that looked like hope. I nodded, fists raised, heart pounding. I don't know if I am. But I'm going to try. My voice was firm for the first time in hours. She smiled, a real smile, and said, "That's all I wanted to hear." We fought, but it was no longer a battle. It was a dance, a conversation without words. Each punch was a question, each deviation an answer. The crowd felt the change, their cries now mingled with something like admiration. Bianca hit me, but not hard. I hit her, but not with hatred. We were understanding each other for the first time. By the end of the round, we were both exhausted, sweat dripping like rivers, chests rising and falling. The doorbell rang, and for a moment we stared at each other, speechless. I saw my sister. Not my rival. My sister. And for the first time I felt no anger but relief. In the corner, SU Jorge held my shoulder. "What's changed, girl?" he asked, frowning. I smiled, weak but true. Everything. He didn't understand, but he didn't need to. I knew what I needed to do. And it wasn't about winning the fight. It was to beat myself. The 13th round was the last. The gym seemed to pulsate as if it knew the end was near. My muscles were screaming, but my heart was light. Bianca and I danced on the canvas, our movements synchronized as if we shared the same blood. And we did. The crowd roared, but I only saw her. My sister. "Are you going to open the letter, Amanda?" she asked, dodging a punch. His voice was soft, almost a whisper. I nodded, throwing a jab that she blocked. "I'm going." "What about you?" She smiled, her eyes shining with tears. "I've already opened it. And I found peace." His words were a gift, an invitation to something greater. I attacked, not to beat her, but to free myself. Each punch was a farewell to anger, fear, abandonment. Bianca answered, her blows precise but gentle. In the last second of the round, she hit me an uppercut that made me stagger. I fell, the cold tarp against my back, but for the first time, it wasn't a defeat. The crowd was silent, the judge started the count, but I didn't get up. He didn't need to. I looked at Bianca, who knelt next to me, her eyes full of tears. "You're enough, Amanda," she said, her voice trembling. "You always have been." Tears streamed down my face and I held her hand, the leather of her gloves warm against my skin. When the judge declared Bianca the winner, the crowd exploded, but I could only see my sister. In the locker room later, I opened the letter. The address. The name. And for the first time I felt like I could face it. Not out of hatred but out of love. For me. By Bianca. For us.